Welcome to the Channel Studios here in London for your international news around the world in 5. After 34 years of investigation, Swedish prosecutors say they have solved the mystery around the death of the former Prime Minister Olof Palme. According to prosecutors, the Prime Minister was killed by Stig Ekström, a graphic designer who died in 2000. Ekström has long been a suspect, known to have been present at the scene of the crime. He was repeatedly questioned by police, but at the time he was dismissed relatively quickly from the investigation. Prime Minister Palme was shot dead in central Stockholm after a visit to the cinema with his wife and son in 1986. Politicians and diplomats have paid tribute to Pierre Nkurunziza after the country's president died of a suspected heart attack. He was admitted to hospital on Saturday after feeling unwell. His condition improved, but on Monday he had a cardiac arrest and efforts to revive him were unsuccessful. The former leader of the opposition said his thoughts were with his family. Nkurunziza, who faced widespread accusations of political oppression during his 15 years in power, was due to step down in August. The chief executive of the fitness firm CrossFit has quit after causing offence with remarks about the death of George Floyd and the resulting protests. Glassman has stepped down after athletes, gyms and sportswear firms cut ties with the brand after he admitted unintentionally hurting many of its members. His exit came on the day of Floyd's funeral in Texas. During a 4-hour service broadcast live on every major US television network from a church in Houston, family members, clergy and politicians gathered to celebrate Floyd's life. Taking to the stage to deliver the main eulogy, civil rights activist Reverend Al Sharpton called him an ordinary who grew up in a Houston housing project but left behind a legacy of greatness. After the funeral, a horse-drawn carriage took Floyd's body through streets lined with thousands of people. Derek Chauvin has since been charged with second-degree murder and 3 other officers with aiding and abetting his death. A statue of Robert Milligan, an 18th century slave trader, has been removed from its plinth outside a London museum. It comes after global anti-racism protests triggered a debate about how Britain commemorates its imperial past. Statues glorifying slave traders and colonialists have come into sharp focus in recent days as part of a broader movement inspired by the Black Lives Matter protests following the death of George Floyd. The city's mayor, Sadiq Khan, has ordered a review and street names across London. Colombian police have seized $265 million worth of cocaine packed in shipping containers in a Pacific port. 4.9 tons of the drug were seized in 2 different containers in what is being considered one of the most important ports of the Pacific coast. The operation represents the largest cocaine seizure in Colombia this year. The authorities did not disclose the owner of the drug. Ali Kushaib, one of the leaders who fought the conflict in Darfur in the early 2000s, has been arrested in the Central African Republic. Mr. Kushaib is now in the custody of the International Criminal Court. He is wanted on 50 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity, including murder, rape and torture. He's been on the run for more than 13 years. Almost 300,000 people were killed and 2.5 million displaced during the conflict. Israel's Supreme Court has ruled against a law that had retrospectively legalized about 4,000 settler homes built on privately owned land in the occupied West Bank. According to the previous law, settlers could remain on the land if they built there without prior knowledge of Palestinian ownership or if homes were built at the state's direction. The Israeli government is due to begin discussing the de facto annexation of the Jordan Valley in the West Bank on July the 1st. Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, is celebrating his 99th birthday today. Buckingham Palace has released a new photograph of the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh to mark the Duke's birthday. Prince Philip has been shielding at Windsor Castle with the Queen since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic in the UK. It is the first public photo of the Duke since he was seen leaving a hospital in London on the 24th of December last year. And finally, researchers have used ground-penetrating radar to map an entire ancient Roman city, including a temple and a unique public monument. The technology was used at Falerii Novi, a walled city spanning 75 acres, about 30 miles north of Rome. Falerii Novi was founded in 241 BC during the time of the Roman Republic and was inhabited until around 700 AD in the early Middle Ages. With a population of around 3,000 people, it boasted an unexpectedly elaborate public bath complex and market building, with at least 60 large houses. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.